For over a year, we were sworn to secrecy. A secret so big and so great, we just weren't sure the world could handle it.
Okay, so I'm exaggerating a bit, but we have spent nearly a year's worth of time on our upcoming project, and it's been no easy feat. Hey there, I'm Ashlyn, the community manager at Coin Crew Games. Welcome to the channel. Considering this is our first long-form video, you're probably new here. Coin Crew Games may not be a household name, at least not yet, but if you've played Escape Academy, you'll be a bit more familiar. That's us. Escape Academy is a game about escape rooms and puzzles where you navigate through the curriculum of an academy that specializes in the art and history of, well, escape. We started out as a small team of people that made arcade cabinets and real-life escape rooms. During the pandemic in 2020, we quickly realized we'd have to figure out something else, and we're glad we did because we love making games. From there, we transitioned to the creation of Escape Academy. As a team, we're super passionate about the work we do, especially when it comes to puzzles and escape rooms, so Escape Academy ended up being an extremely fulfilling project. After we could say we were finally done working on it, the team wanted to take our vision one step further. That's why we're here, showing off what we've done so far with Escape Academy 2, Back to School. It hasn't been easy. In that time, we've learned a lot about what it means to make a sequel, and how to execute it properly. So take out your pencils and notebooks, because you're late to class. Here's what you missed out on during Escape Academy 2's secret development year. Starting a sequel. Escape Academy 1 taught us a lot of lessons, the first one being that we made pretty much every mistake in the design of our engine that you could imagine. As I mentioned before, we were just a team that had made arcade cabinets where at most, the gameplay loop will last 3 minutes. But then, due to the pandemic, we would be pushed outside of our comfort zone and end up making a game where the player would be playing for 4 to 6 hours. This was quite the difference, and while we made a game that we loved, it was time to start over. So before we could even think about making a second game, we had to burn down our first engine. Sorry. So now, we were here. As you'll know if you've ever tried to open up Unity and make a game from scratch, creating a game isn't as easy as snapping your fingers. It's simple enough to have a good idea, everyone who's taken a shower has had one, but the entire process quickly becomes a grind. Our grind starts with game design. In order to make sure we use the lessons we learned from our last game, it was time to start asking the big questions. Questions like, how do we make a sequel? We don't want Escape Academy 1.5, we want Escape Academy 2, and when I say that, I mean that a sequel should feel like more than just a level pack for Escape Academy 1. We want this game to feel like a completely new and expanded take on the original premise. We don't want Escape Academy with more rooms, but rather a completely transformative take on the first game. Escape Academy was 90% escape and 10% academy. How do we put more emphasis on the academy part? And lastly, was something like this even possible? After a bunch of iteration on these questions and some simple game design documents, we came to the conclusion of what Escape Academy 2 would be, quite concisely. Escape Academy 2 Back to School should evolve the escape room format of the first game into a whole new genre. This would be the first open world escape room game, and it will be available right in the comfort of your own home. As you could probably guess from that description, our game's going to contain a ton of puzzles. With the first documents I talked about, the team got to work on designing the first series of puzzles we'd need to get a working demo of the game going. This can get pretty complicated, so I've teamed up with our puzzle designer Jacob here to help break down our process.
Hey, thanks Ashlyn. I'm Jacob. I'm the head puzzle designer for Escape Academy 2. Puzzle design for me always starts with understanding player expectations. Every level in the game has a theme, and players are going to come into each level with expectations about that theme. For example, let's say we're designing a level about an art classroom. What does a player expect to see when presented with a subject of art classroom? So I usually start with a combination of research and just listing out ideas. For an art classroom, I would expect to find things like sculpture, painting, different kinds of art, different kinds of visual puzzles and spatial reasoning. Then I can go into brainstorming all sorts of ideas that fit into these different themes and topics. I might do research about different kinds of art movements, different kinds of optical illusions, different kinds of art styles, all sorts of things that I can incorporate into the level to combine an academic subject with puzzle solving ideas. Then after the research is complete, it's time to turn those ideas into puzzles by sketching things out. I want to try different ideas, see how I can make them into physical things that the player can interact with. So, for example, let's say we're talking about optical illusions, and I want to do a puzzle about the phenomenon where people make vases, where the inverse of the vase looks like the silhouette of a face outline. I can sketch out that idea and try to figure out the best way to hide that or incorporate that into the environment. Then I can start to think about all the ways that face-vase illusion could be clued as a puzzle. What if, for example, we had a big door with a big face on it, and you had to figure out the right kind of facial expression to unlock that that door. That would encourage the player to look for faces somewhere else in the environment to connect those two things together. Then it's time for sharing this idea and prototyping it in the level. So what I'll do is I'll draw out the idea on paper or make a simple mock-up of it to share it with other people on the team and see how they respond to it. Their feedback is super helpful for me refining the puzzle and making sure that my expectations align with the player expectation. It's this cycle of brainstorm, sketch, design, share, and refine that is put into every puzzle in the game. But at its core, it all comes back to player expectations. What do I think the player is going to want to see when presented with this kind of theme? And how can I turn those ideas into really fun and engaging puzzles for them to figure out? I really hope that example can give a little bit of insight into the puzzle design process. Puzzle design is really fun. It's sort of like I'm designing the whole game backwards. I start with all the solutions, and then it's my job to figure out how to turn those into fun puzzles for the players.
With the help of Jacob and our other awesome team members, it was time to begin prototyping. Like most game development projects, it didn't happen quickly, but as our efforts slowly came together, we started to design the first section of the Academy, which would later be called the Humanities Campus. To start getting the open world campus we want going, we'd have to find a skybox, Okay, actually, let's start simple. We started with a prototype, which would function as a chunk of the game that lets us know what the rest of the game is going to play like. This lets us test out our early engine systems and get a feel for the game before we begin working on the rest of it. Things like the quest system, open world campus, and puzzles. Since we're branching out from Escape Academy and making sure we learn from our past mistakes, it was important to us that we got it right. Our first prototype was a level concept where you'd have to get out of detention after you've done something bad. It looked incredibly rough at first, but for the most part, all games do at this stage. In our development process, we regularly flip-flopped between escape room prototypes and open world quest systems, especially because a high level of polish wasn't yet necessary. The new engine was interesting. Being able to utilize these new systems meant that we would be held back far less. Our Escape Academy 1 engine had essentially bottlenecked us. From there, we were able to start using one of our team's favorite techniques, grayboxing. Grayboxing is used by many game studios, especially in the level design process, where you place down a bunch of simple shapes in a rough pattern resembling what you want the final level to look like. Think about it like this. Putting down a bunch of boxes to represent a jump your game's character will have to make is an easier way to test things out as compared to putting down the shapes, texturing it, polishing it, testing it, only to find out that you made the gap a little too wide or small. This exact thing happened to us. A lot. It took lots of tweaking to get the campus just right, and even at this point we knew that demands from the narrative as well as the different ambitions we had in regards to new mechanics and puzzles meant that we'd be coming back and adjusting things very frequently. However, grayboxing meant that we caught these design flaws pretty early on, and if you're an aspiring game developer, make sure that you use this tool. Our game was shaping up beyond a prototype detention escape room and a rough outline of the quest system. Once we had tested these and knew that they felt right, it was time to try and get the flow of the game working. We know that we want our game to have escape rooms that lead you into quests, that lead you into escape rooms, all while following a new narrative and fully immersing you as a student in the Escape Academy. Remember, we're shooting for more than just escape here. So now was the perfect time for building the campus. We continued to swing between quests and escape rooms, and at this point we had an early look at a prototype of the Escape Academy campus. This gray box campus gave us a lot more tools at our disposal. Experiencing what it would be like to walk around a campus put a ton of ideas into our head, and from here we actually learned a couple of things. Something I haven't yet talked about is that at this stage, interpersonal relationships with students was going to be a major focus in the game. But once we started walking around campus and using the prototype escape rooms we had made, we decided to put this to the side for now. We still wanted to have interactions with students that felt meaningful, but we decided we wanted to do it in a different way. More on that in another devlog maybe? When moving from escape rooms to an open world campus, the demands completely changed. Usually, in an escape room, you can just load the level itself and you don't have to worry too much about performance because even if there's some optimization bugs here or some lag there, it won't be a major impact with so little being loaded. But with an open world space, so much more is loaded at once, and that means that we have to cut down on exactly how much we're demanding out of your computer at any given point. This meant that optimization was a completely new factor to think about. Building out these big scenes always requires a ton of tweaking, and other open world games usually have a handful of tricks to tackle this problem. This was a huge milestone in our development because it marked the transition from prototype to game. We continued work on the humanities section of the campus, which, if you're not familiar, is the part of a school where students will learn about history, culture, and more. There was a lot of research involved in this process, both in the puzzle department and the art department, in order to get everything accurate while also fitting nicely into the world of Escape Academy, not to mention plenty of room for creativity. We drew up sketch after sketch and spent many late nights deep in research rabbit holes, especially when designing puzzles that would have important cultural relevance. Getting those things right is extremely important. After tons of tweaking, our Graybox Humanities campus would evolve first into this, and then into this. You might notice that this area looks a little familiar, and if that's so, then that means you've seen our trailer. Thanks. Hopefully, you're as excited about humanities as we are, because this area took a lot of research and we put a lot of love into it. If you'd like to see a deeper dive into how we designed this section, just let us know. We're cooking up ideas for future devlogs, and I think there's plenty more to dive in there. We had finally achieved a campus. This textured peek of what a campus would look like at Escape Academy was another step forward. This would give us the tools we needed to further expand the scope of Escape Academy 2. Now, you could go around and talk to students, you could solve puzzles, and the Academy kept evolving. But then, we learned something. Freedom isn't fun. I don't think this part deserves its own chapter, but it's something super unique I wanted to point out. When we were designing the Humanities campus, there were a few lessons to be learned from the change in tone. Escape rooms usually have a ton of urgency. You're racing against a timer, trying to make it out of this room with vague, and sometimes not so vague, consequences. Open world campuses are super open-ended. Since you're not limited to a room, there's more options available in terms of terrain, exploration, or visual aesthetic that isn't always possible with a closed-in room. However, to a player, this freedom is not always fun at first, and that's for a few reasons. When we made the Humanities campus, it was originally extremely open-ended. You could walk around and go from building to building, and it felt very serene. Unfortunately, in our case, serene tranquil became boring. This was a huge chunk of space that was suddenly unlocked all at once. There wasn't as much accomplishment involved. We went back to the drawing board and made the decision to lock down the campus, requiring you to start out with a single building, while using quests and other mechanics to reward the player by unlocking parts of the campus. High hopes, ambition, mechanics, and more. While work on the major chunks of our first demo was happening, we got to scheming. What were our high hopes? What new mechanics should be introduced? What are we really excited for? And lastly, how do we plan to blow it out of the water with the full version? This was the time to reflect and think of any big roadblocks we might incidentally create for ourselves later down the line, and how to prevent that. We didn't really do this with Escape Academy 1, and we know how that went. I haven't been on the team as long as the majority of the other members, so I sat down and had a chat with one of our co-founders to see what was up. Hey Mike.
Hey Ashlyn.
As you know, I'm currently working on our first devlog, and I've got a couple of questions about the early parts of Escape Academy 2's development.
Let's do it.
So, first off, what are some of your high hopes for Escape Academy 2?
I think my biggest hope for Escape Academy is that players will really get to feel like they are students at a puzzle-solving academy. With the first game, we had really excellent escape rooms and cool characters, and I just want to go even deeper on that in the sequel and let you roleplay being a student, explore the campus, and get to have even deeper interactions with the other characters in our world.
I can get behind that. When it comes to making a sequel, what's been the biggest challenge so far?
So I think one of the biggest challenges with Escape Academy 2 in particular is in this sequel, we're really excited about this new idea of open world escape room gameplay. And like, that's such a weird statement, such like an oxymoron of a concept, that it's been really fun and also challenging to figure out how to blend you're locked in a room and you can't go anywhere with you have a campus to explore and you can go everywhere. And so like finding when is the right opportunity to let you roam, when is the right opportunity to really like lock you in one spot and stick you there, and especially like how does it interact in multiplayer mode, I think has been like the most fun challenge to tackle and definitely the hardest one.
That makes a lot of sense. Speaking of that, what are some of the new mechanics that you find yourself really excited for?
There's a couple little mechanics that I'm really excited about, and they're minor, but they have been super fun, and they're little multiplayer things. Like you can emote at each other this time around, you can jump, and you can like ping, like to put like an arrow on something, and like all these features don't really like do anything on the surface, but watching partners, like duos of people play the game is so fun because it's created like all these new ways to express yourself and like discuss like, hey, this puzzle, ping, 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 or like when your partner is going too slow, clapping at them, or like just the amount of like sass and personality that's added into the game. I'm really glad we doubled down on that in the sequel.
Especially as someone that played Escape Academy 1, seeing the whimsy cranked up to 11 has been really fun.
I love the shenanigans that you can get up to in multiplayer games, and so just giving people more ways to express themselves and communicate with their partners, I think is the co-op dream.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, I wanted to know if you have anything that you'd like to say to small indie teams, or even solo dev.
My advice for any game dev, but especially on like a smaller project where you have a lot of control over the project, is to just play test it a ton. A lot of times when we're building this, we have like a certain style of puzzle we want or a certain mood we want to hit. And like as a designer, it can be daunting because there's like the feeling of like, oh, how do I get this right? I hope I get this right. But by doing a lot of playtest, it takes so much of that pressure off because I can see how players are interacting with it, and I can try different things and tweak it. And so it turns the whole process into way more of like an experiment or an iteration. And so I don't think we would be able to do what we're doing if we weren't playtesting so frequently. And so my advice for other devs is just playtest so much, probably even more than you think you need to, and you can learn surprising things along the way.
As the community manager, I have my own set of high hopes for the game as well, part of which is getting to help spread the word of the project and saying hello to all of the wonderful people who come to interact with our community. If you're not already in our Discord, come say hi. The team always loves meeting new faces, and over there you'll get access to some super special stuff you just won't see on our other pages. Anyways, when it comes to mechanics, my favorite two by far have to be the open world campus and the quest system. Both of these work so beautifully together and allows for tons of tiny little narrative touches and Easter eggs that fit so well into the series. As someone who loved the first game, I really feel like a student at the academy going around learning about the art of escape, and trust me, learning is important. Retrospective. As a studio, something we found extremely useful in the games industry is knowledge, and Escape Academy gave us a lot of it. Honest opinions and genuine feedback are so important, and as a team, we've come to love the process of making games. Yes, there has been good, and there's been bad, but I don't think we would go back and change anything because it's made us into the team we are. We're all extremely close-knit nowadays, and I wake up excited to continue working on this project. To any developer that made it here, remember this. Making a game is hard, making a game is fun, but most importantly, making a game is fulfilling. It feels extremely fulfilling to get out of bed and work on something, and we know that it'll feel good to finish the game, but if you're not enjoying the process itself, I don't think that you're making a game properly. So when you're walking around the academy, taking in the fresh sunlight, and breathing that campus air, just remember us. Someone had to model that tree, texture that rock, and someone had to write every little interaction that you fall in love with as you step through our passion project. Thank you for taking the time to watch. We hope you'll love Escape Academy 2 as much as we loved making it. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe and wishlist our game on Steam. It helps give us more visibility, and it lets us know exactly how good you think we're doing. We're an extremely feedback-oriented team, and I've always dreamed of having a big community, so please keep your thoughts in the comments if you have any, and if you're feeling up to it, say hi to us on Discord. For now, that's all from us. See you in the next one.